This had to be Georgia, right?
Of course it was.
I can be reminded.
So we're going to go ahead and get the July 15, 2026 NFRMPO TAC meeting. We'll go ahead and call it to order. Start with introductions. I'm Evan Pinkham, a transportation planner with Weld County, and we'll just start here with Jerome Rouser, transportation planner at the NPO.
Aaron Bull, mobility planner at the NPO. Jonathan Stockberger, transportation planner with the NPO.
Joshua Moss, City of Fort Collins Transport.
Annabelle Phillips, City of Fort Collins Transport. I'm here for Dana today.
Keith Wakefield, City of Loveland, Assistant City Engineer.
Pearson, Transportation Engineer, Title Officer.
Eric Tracy.
Becky Carrasco with the NPO.
All right, and then is there anyone online that would like to introduce themselves? Maybe if you're new to the meetings.
Amanda.
Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself. I just started this week with CDOT in Region 4 with the planning team, working with Josie Thomas. So just wanted to say hi, and I'm excited to work with everyone.
Hi, Tom Moore with the Regional Air Quality Council.
Did anyone else online want to introduce? Oh, sorry. Sounds good. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. We'll give 2 minutes for public comment. Anyone able to speak? So open the floor to any public comment. And we'll move on to the approval of the June 17th, 2026 meeting minutes. I'll open the floor to any questions about the meeting minutes, any changes. Open the floor to a motion if there is one. Got it first.
I'll second it.
Very good. All in favor to approve the meeting minutes here, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, with that, we'll move on and approve those meeting minutes from June. Next, we'll move on to the lead planning agency for air quality agenda. And first, we have the RAC updates with Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to give a quick verbal report. I'm going to put some information in the chat, so maybe that could go into the record. We're holding a series of workshops this summer. I'm a little behind the curve here. We started on Monday this week, and I have to leave this meeting a little early because we have another workshop today at 1:30. But you can register for them online, and you'll see the process to access the information. We're seeking to review the strategy proposals in these workshops, and then update the briefing papers as a result of that input. And then we'll be putting out our first draft of the next version of the entire blueprint document in around the 1st of September. So I know this group is real interested in transportation. So August 12th the sole focus of that will be the on-road mobile source emissions control strategies. I'll just leave it there. There's materials if you click on those links to that for the ones we've already held, that you can look back at those materials and the recordings. So I'll stop with that in case there's any questions.
Tom, this is Becky. I have a question, but it's not related to, well, it's sort of related to the blueprint. And I was just curious, I know that there's an article that you were a co-author on for the Journal of Air and Waste Management Association. I was just wondering how the findings in that article are informing the strategies in your blueprint.
Well, I don't see those as closely connected, Becky, but the journal article, compares and contrasts these four large urban non-attainment areas that haven't in the West, the Intermountain West, that haven't made as much progress toward achieving the standards. Maricopa, Phoenix area, Las Vegas, Clark County, Nevada, the Northern Wasatch Front in Utah, and then the Denver metro area here. So that kind of goes through and compares and contrasts. The article is really not about strategies. It's not even really about emissions. It's really about, kind of what the planning context is for those areas and the kinds of information, data that needs to be considered. So that's a good question, but I'll have to give some thought about how we might, use any of those findings in the next version of the blueprint. So thanks for that idea.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Tom? Go ahead and move on to the APCD updates with Brendan.
Hey everyone, I have a quick verbal update from APCD on some upcoming rulemaking hearings. First of those will be a rulemaking hearing on PM10 particulate matter maintenance plan revisions. Here, the Commission will consider revisions to regulations number 1, number 4, and number 16, the state implementation plan, specific regulations for non-attainment, attainment, and maintenance areas, air quality standards, designations and emission budgets that impact PM10 maintenance plans for those areas, and then the proposal will evaluate potential revisions to remove federal enforceability of PM10 emission control requirements. If this is no longer necessary, they will become state-only requirements. And then the next upcoming rulemaking hearing is for regulation number 27 regarding the manufacturing sector and greenhouse gas emission standards. Here, the Commission will consider revisions to improve regulation number 27 programs for the division and regulated entities and to increase transparency to the public. And those are the upcoming rulemaking hearings this month.
All right, very good. Any questions for Brendan? Thanks, Brendan. Go ahead and move on to the Metropolitan Planning Organization agenda to the action items. First, we'll be looking at transport fiscal year 26 program of projects with Joshua.
Yeah, so the city of Fort Collins is seeking TAC recommendation for our federal fiscal year 2026 Federal Transit Administration program projects for sections 5307, 5310, and 5339 apportionments for the Fort Collins urbanized area. Beginning in school year 2020, City of Loveland became a direct recipient of FTA section 5307 and 5339 funds. City of Fort Collins remains the designated recipient for FTA sections 5307, 5310, and 5339 funding for the Fort Collins UTA. The City of Fort Collins coordinates with other UTA members to develop the distribution of available formula funds and identified projects to be included in the program of projects. Regarding the federal fiscal year 2026 funding, the public meeting was held from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. at the Downtown Transit Center in Fort Collins on July 1st. A virtual attendance option was provided. Public notice of the meeting was published in the primary Fort Collins newspaper, the Coloradoan. An online notice was published on the transport website for 2 weeks, including contact information for submitting public comments. We received no questions or concerns regarding the program projects to date. The City of Loveland Transit will program this allocation of FTA funds as a direct recipient. Full FY26 apportionments were released on March 31st, 2026. Funding exchange will remain in effect for Berthoud and NFRMPO for sections 5307, 5310, and 5339 funds. Full will continue funding exchange for section 5310 funds. Each of the funding sources. Would you like me to go through them or visual? Okay.
I think the visuals okay. If you just want to talk about totals for each.
Okay, yeah, so for FY26 5307, the apportionment for the Fort Collins UCA, or our City of Fort Collins allocation was 4.5 million. For 5339, 355,000, for 5310, it was 446,000.
Any questions for Joshua? Seeing none, I'll open the floor to a motion on this item. I've got first. Is there a second to approve?
I'll second it.
Very good. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. With that, we'll approve the transport FY26 program and projects. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is the transport FY25 program and project revision.
So we are, the City of Fort Collins is also seeking TAC recommendation to revise its FY25 program and projects. Noting our 5307 formula grant as well as our FY21 American Rescue Plan or ARPA 5307 grant. 5307 grants provide federal funding for transit capital and operating assistance and transportation related planning activities. We are looking to amend our FY21 ARP 5307 grant and program our FY25 5307 grant to exchange eligible projects between the two awards. Capital project to make major improvements to our transport maintenance facility currently programmed under our ARPA grant will be moved to the FY25 section 5307 grant, allowing the remaining ARPA funds to be utilized for eligible operating activities. This approach better aligns available funding sources with anticipated timing of expenditures while supporting continued progress on both transit operations and the TMF or the transport maintenance facility project. This item also includes revisions to our federal fiscal year 25 program and projects for sections 5307, 5310, and 5339 to reflect final FTA awards. The original program of projects was developed using the best available estimates during the city's budgeting process. Due to timing differences between the budget cycle and the release of FTA portions, this revision aligns the program funding amounts with the actual federal awards and corresponding local match requirements. So the final award amounts for FY 25 5307, 4.6 million. 5339 was 329,000. 5310 was 408,000. We moved $4.8 million off our ARPA award for operating assistance and moved it onto our 5307 grant. That's the summary.
Any questions for Joshua? I'd say that I'll look for a motion on this item.
And move to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, with that, we'll approve the transport FY 25 program projects revisions. Thank you, Joshua. And then we'll move on to item number 8, which is the July 2026 TIP amendment. From Jonathan. Yeah, go ahead, John.
The July 2026 TIP amendment includes 2 project additions from various organizations. The first amendment is from the North Front Range NPO with the project Ride NoCo expansion with 72,000 state faster funding and 18,000 local funding, all in fiscal year 27. This project expands Ride NoCo's online platform functionality, integrates additional transportation providers via API connections, enhances language accessibility through the call center and online tools, and provides training and technical assistance to partner agencies. The second project addition is from the Evangelical Lutheran Good Samaritan Society, or GSS, with the project GSS Vehicle Purchase, with 95,000 state Senate Bill 228 funding and 24,000 local funding, all in fiscal year 26. GSS is the largest nonprofit provider of senior care services in the U.S. Public comment period opened on July 10th. That needs to be changed to memo. We'll do that before council, and we'll close on August 10th. NFRMPO staff noted no disadvantages and support adding the July 2026 TIP amendment to the fiscal year 24 through 27 TIP.
All right, any questions for Jonathan on this? And then I'll look for a motion on the action item here.
A motion to approve the TIP.
Second. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, with that, we'll approve the July 2026 TIP amendment. Move on to presentations. First off, we have the CDPHE e-mobility analysis for Larimer and Weld counties. Reagan?
Yeah, she's going to share. Reagan, are you going to share your own screen? Okay, yes.
Yes, that
You
would
should
be
be.
great. Awesome. All right. You all see that it's loading right now, but can you see that on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you for having me. Today I'm going to be presenting, like I said, on trends in e-mobility injuries in hospital and crash data in Weld and Larimer counties. My name is Reagan Cabrini. I'm the injury epidemiologist at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And as I'm going, if you have a clarifying question or said something that made no sense, just interrupt me. If you have a question, or you can put a message in the chat, whatever works easiest for you. So I just wanted to first start with some disclaimers and definitions. The first is that the hospital and emergency department data I'm using is going to be by county of residence and not by the location of the crash event. So when we're looking at the crash data versus looking at the emergency department and hospital data, it's not exactly an apples to apples, more like an apples to oranges. And so we can't compare them directly. The second thing is that any emergency department or hospital count under 11 has to be suppressed per a data user agreement, which is one of the reasons why I have Larimer and Weld combined and not just separate. And also, there are some of these counts that will be missing altogether because there were too few hospitalizations in that year. And then the third thing is that I'll be describing my methodology in a moment here, but the crash data could include misclassification of e-bikes as motorcycles or bicycles, or not include them in the narrative at all. So how I did this is I pulled any time in the narrative it had specific keywords related to e-bikes or e-scooters. So they might have not put it in the narrative at all, or they might have said it was a bicycle and actually it was an e-bike, or they said it was a scooter, or whatever it might be. They might have said it was a motorcycle. And so just some things to keep in mind that it's probably not a full picture of what the crash data looks like, but it's a good start. And then some just quick definitions as well. I'll be using the words ED or the acronym ED for emergency department interchangeably. And just also wanted to put the definition of an ICD-10-CM code, which is a standardized alphanumeric coding system used in the US to classify and report diagnoses, symptoms, and injuries on medical claims and records. And so that's how I pulled the e-mobility injury classifications, which I'll describe in a second as well. So just starting with the crash data query, I had one of the analysts, Alyssa Heron at CDOT, pull this for me. She's the one that gives us our crash data, but on the back end, she was able to pull anytime a narrative in the state included anything related to an e-bike or an e-scooter. So these are the different types of words or strings that we were looking for. Again, probably not fully capturing everything, but I think it gives us a good idea. And then these are the inclusion ICD-10-CM codes for e-bikes. And so there are like 40 of these. It could be anything from an e-scooter was getting off of their scooter and fell off, or an e-bike, or it could be they ran into a rock, or they ran into a truck. It's just any different type of injury claim that would cost more or less money for the hospital. That's why they have all these different definitions for it. And then these are all the e-scooter codes that I used. Later on, I will be sharing that I also classified these by traffic versus non-traffic and collision versus non-collision. So just something to keep in mind. And so here are some of the trends now that we've gone through some of the methods. This is all going to be looking at Weld and Larimer counties. So the picture on, or the figure on the left is looking at our hospitalizations, and the ones on the right are looking at our hospitalizations. So on the left here, we can see that the hospitalizations were too low for 2023, but in general, there's an increasing trend in Larimer and Weld counties for e-bike injuries. This is with the crash data. We can see as well that there was an increasing trend. Although there weren't that many, there's only a single one in 2022. The trend has gone up increasingly since 2022 to 2025. Most of these were no apparent injuries. I think that is an encouraging thing. This is also true in the statewide data. Quite a few of them are minor injuries. That's something to keep an eye on. And there were no fatal injuries. And so I think that's very positive. The next, looking at e-scooter data, hospitalization counts are too low to show. Here, we can see with the ED data that there was an increasing trend as well. And then this is the e-scooter crash data. It kind of was leveled out from 22 to 24 in Weld and Larimer counties, but it has increased since then. At 2025, it went up to 23 that year. Another thing that's interesting with e-scooters versus the e-bikes that I noticed here is that there are 14 serious and fatal injuries in the crash data from these e-scooter crashes. But again, most of them are no apparent injuries. So also a good thing there. Next, I wanted to show demographic information. So this is the e-bike data. So on the left is emergency department, on the right is the crash data. These crashes, whether they're the ED or from the crash data, are disproportionately male injuries, 95% of them in the crash data, which is staggering. Next, looking at the demographic information for age group, the highest age group was 25 to 34 with the EDs, and then I think it was 35 to 44, yeah, with the crash data. So a bit of an older group than maybe I would have expected, but fairly equally distributed after that. And then this is the e-scooter data. Found it interesting that it's maybe a bit more even with e-scooters versus e-bikes of male versus female injuries. Although in the crash data, it's still 60% male. It's less extreme than with the e-bike injuries. And the other thing with e-scooters, this is true at the state level as well, is that there is a younger distribution. So 5 to 14-year-olds in the emergency department were 30% of those e-scooter injuries. So just an interesting trend with the e-scooters as well as being a little bit of a younger distribution. And you can see on the bottom, there were a lot of unknowns for the non-motorists. But other than that, similarly, there were more of a younger distribution with age group. Next, I was saying that I had broken up those ICD-10 CM codes into traffic versus non-traffic and collision versus non-collision. These trends are the same at the state level as well, but e-bike injuries were more likely to be traffic rather than non-traffic, and e-scooters were much more likely to be non-traffic than traffic injuries, which means that it wasn't on a public road and it didn't involve a vehicle. And then the collision versus non-collision, most of them for e-bikes and e-scooters were non-collision injuries. So again, that would just be that they didn't hit another person or a car, that they fell off the vehicle on their own, or off the e-bike on their own, or the e-scooter. These next couple sections are just looking at the crash data, but on the left we see the helmeted non-motorists. With e-bikes, it was 42% were properly wearing their helmet. I think that's very encouraging, that almost half were properly using their helmet. With e-scooters, there were 12% properly used. This was a similar distinction at the state level as well, that there were more e-bikes wearing their helmet, which makes sense to me. And I think this could also speak a bit to public versus private ownership, which I'll talk about in a second here, but just encouraging that people are using helmets maybe more than I would think that they were. And then this is looking at the location 1 and the city for e-bikes, and most of these were in Fort Collins, with a few happening in Erie, Johnstown, and Windsor. But compared to e-scooter data, I'm just going to skip to the right here, most of them were also in Fort Collins, but interestingly, almost 20% of them were in Loveland. And looking at these location ones, I just thought these were interesting. This is public use information, so but 5 of those injuries were on shields, and whereas with the e-bike data maybe was more equally distributed, there weren't too many in one spot. And then lastly, I just wanted to say what we don't know, because these are things I want to dig into a bit more, but the hospitalization and emergency department, as well as the crash data, don't have any information on e-bike classification. And so that, as people know that might be into the e-moto world right now, it's just, there's not much we don't know much about the classifications. And I think it's January in 2027 where they're requiring the classification to be on the e-bike in Colorado. And so that will be positive. And I also think that that could possibly help create a requirement for crash data to have it as a classification. But something to keep in mind that I don't know in the crash or the emergency and hospitalizations what type of e-bike it was. And the second thing is private versus publicly owned vehicles. That would be also something that would be really helpful to know in this data that could change people's behaviors. So something to keep in mind, and something that I don't know and I want to know. But that is all I have for you, and thank you. I see that there's one comment, but it's from Hannah. I'm curious if there's a way for us to amend the query. The only shared micromobility provider is either Larimer or Weld County's spin. Okay. Can we see if changing the query to include their names change any results? We could. That will take me some time, but it's definitely something that is helpful to know, because the providers are different. I think in Denver too, we changed to VO in 2025. And so, yeah, that is a really helpful point and something that I can change the next time I pull the query. Thanks, Hannah. It's spin. Okay, it'd be good to know for those using managing aircrafts. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have one quick question. Is there a way to capture data of others getting injured as a result of e-scooters or e-bikes? Not necessarily the person riding the vehicle got injured, but they might have hit somebody, or somebody might have fell to get out of the way or something like that.
In terms of the crash data, how I collected the number of injuries is which I probably should have clarified at the very beginning. Sorry, give a little bit of whiplash here. With the crash count, as I looked at the total number of injuries from the crash, and so this is probably including anything that was anybody who was on the crash report. So that could have been a pedestrian or another vehicle. But just from like physics standpoint, that's probably more likely if these are normal classified e-bikes and not e-motos, that they were probably the individual that was injured in these crashes. But that's a great question. The ED and hospitalization would not have a way of figuring that out. But yeah, with the crash data, you could see the other people involved in the crash that were injured.
Any other questions for Rigger? Blue.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions, you can email me. Oh, I think
I couldn't unmute fast enough. I do have one quick question.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how CDPHE and CDOT coordinate with this information and use this data between the two state departments.
It's a great question. It is something we're working on right now. I started working on this project maybe the most 6 months ago. I'm working with some people at CDOT that are in the micromobility world on how we can get this data out there for local health departments or transportation to just have the even if we could get the latitude and longitude out for these injuries. That's some of the ways that we're trying to work on it, as well as some campaigns about helmets. But great question. It hasn't exactly started yet, but we're having conversations and hoping to get the ball rolling, unfortunately.
Any more questions?
The other thing I'll mention too, Elizabeth, is that my supervisor, he's the chair of STRAC, which is the Statewide Traffic Records Advisory Committee. And one of the things we hope that this information could do is help make a point for why there should be a checkpoint on the crash report form, the DR 3447, where it says, was there an e-bike involved? Because right now I'm just pulling from narratives and we don't have a full picture. And so hopefully this data can be used to say that this is an important enough type of non-motorist or motorist to have in the crash report form, so we can get more data on this, and also just get a true count of the number of injuries on Colorado roads.
That's great. I think that information's super helpful. And I think it would also, a lot of our communities, our members do their own crash reports and have different crash reports. So it would be interesting to hear how our member communities are trying to also add that information to their crash reports. As we're having the conversations about how the NPO can collectively help gather all that data for our crash dashboard and how that should be reflected.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right, very good. If there's nothing else, any other questions? Move on to the discussion items. With the federal performance measures, FHWA PM3 system performance updates with Jacob and Brittany.
Jacob, are you going to share your screen?
Yeah, I can share my screen. Let me pull it up real quick. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. And I only have one screen in front of me, so feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. With the presentation showing, I can't see what's going on in the meeting there, and apologies about that. I'm not at my normal workspace. I'm at the Colorado Traffic Safety Summit up in Grand Junction today, so I'm presenting from a hotel room. Anyhow, here to present on the national performance measures today. My name is Jacob Kirshner, and I'm the Performance Program Manager at CDOT. I'm here to discuss the 2026 through 2029 performance period for our federal performance measures. Specifically, we are going to walk through the joint NPO targets for traffic congestion. The national performance measures are required under the 2021 Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. Each state is required to set targets for and report on the progress of performance metrics related to the surface transportation system. The goal is to give state and federal decision makers a consistent look at how the national highway system is performing. This performance measures for these metrics cover 3 goal areas. That's PM1, which covers safety, PM2, infrastructure conditions, so that's going to be pavement and bridge targets, and then PM3, which is system performance, reliability, freight, and CMAQ targets. For the purposes of today's discussion, we're going to be focusing purely on the PM3 targets, and specifically the joint NPO targets that CDOT and North Front Range NPO are required to coordinate together on. We are currently in the 3rd performance period, which runs from January 1st, 2026 through 2029. CDOT's federal deadline for this performance period is to submit targets by October 1st of this year. The NPO requirement is that within 180 days of the state's submission, NPOs must either support the state targets or establish their own. The reason we are here a little bit early today is for the joint targets. Since this is a joint target between North Front Range NPO and CDOT, we do need to meet that state deadline. So we'll be required to report this in our October 1st deadline. And so our specific ask for today will be for the TAC to give a recommendation of approval so we can advance this to the Planning Council to get this approved by September so that we can meet our October 1st deadline. The joint NPO targets cover 2 performance measures. The first is peak hours of excessive delay, and the second is non-single occupancy vehicle travel, which is modes other than driving alone. The reason North Front Range NPO is required to have a joint target with CDOT is because they have a mainline national highway system highway within the NPO urbanized area boundary that has a population greater than 200,000 and is designated as a non-attainment or maintenance for air quality. For these performance measures, I do want to make it clear the geographic scope here. So since this is a joint target between the NPO and CDOT, we're not looking at the North Front Range NPO geography. We're looking at the Fort Collins urbanized area. This slide here shows the Fort Collins urbanized area. In the green there, you can see this is made up of Fort Collins, Loveland, and a little bit of Windsor. Starting with the first performance metric, we'll take a look at peak hours of excessive delay. And so this looks at the extra time an average person spends stuck in excessive traffic each year. This is during rush hour periods, so it's going to be your morning period of 6 to 10 a.m. and your afternoon peak of 3 to 7 p.m. When it becomes excessive is when you're going below 20 miles per hour or 60% of the posted speed limit, whichever is greater. And then how this is calculated, it gets a bit technical. The feds established the methodology for this, but we're looking at person hours based on an average vehicle occupancy. And so an example being a 1 hour delay would equal 1 person hour for a single occupant car, or if you had a bus with 40 people in it, that would be 40 hours. When we do get to the numbers, if they seem low to you, if you think I'm stuck in traffic more than 3 hours in a year, it's because it's a regional average. So we're looking at the entire population. This is including non-drivers, not just commuters. The bar is high for that. So 35 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone is slow, but that would not meet the excessive federal threshold. And it is a limited scope. So we're only looking at the national highway system. So and weekdays as well. So if you're stuck in traffic on the weekend, or if it's a local residential street gridlock, that won't count towards this. How we set targets for this is we used a PM3 calculator powered by a predictive machine learning model. This uses key data inputs such as historical traffic and performance, roadway infrastructure, so road lengths, number of lanes, average amount of daily traffic. We look at regional demographics, so proximity of a road to employment centers or schools. And then we also use streetlight data to look at travel behavior. And so this is going to look at things like long distance recreational travel, tourism, and freight movement, and see how those overlap with the weekday rush hours. Using all this data within our predictive machine learning model, we were able to forecast these targets here. What you'll see here in the blue is our historical performance for the Fort Collins urbanized area. You can see we range anywhere from a low of 2.1 to a high of 4.1, kind of varying based on COVID impacts or the I-25 construction projects that's been going through Fort Collins. In the orange, that will be the results of our predictive model, and then the dotted green and black lines, those are our upper and lower confidence bounds. And so we're recommending using the upper confidence bound here. That way we have a little bit of leadway between what our model is forecasting to make sure we do achieve these targets when we set them with the feds. This does land us at a target of 3.3 for both 2027 and 2029. Pretty similar to what our 2023 and 2025 targets are. This recognizes that there was a drop, you'll see it there in 2024, that was kind of a pause in I-25 construction. There will be ongoing construction specifically through the Meade to Berthoud area. So we are factoring that in, and we're recommending a target of 3.3 to kind of capture continuing construction and following historical trends. The next performance measure is percent of non-single occupancy vehicle travel. And so this tracks people that are driving not alone. So what counts as non-SOV could be carpool, public transportation, walking or bicycling, and working from home. We get this data from the American Community Survey Journey to Work data. How we set the target for this one is we looked at a log regression model. What we're seeing here is the main factor in driving non-SOV growth has been almost entirely by remote work. It's nearly tripled from 8% in 2019 to over 21% by 2024. And so we're seeing kind of this perfectly follow what a log model and log regression curve looks like. You're going to see that rapid growth, and then it's going to kind of start to plateau off. And we're thinking that's kind of the reality with telework. We think we've reached a natural ceiling there. And so rather than using a linear regression model that would just have endless growth in telework, we recommend using a log regression model. That ended up with these results here. Again, the blue is our historical lines. The orange is the log regression model results. The blue dotted line and the black dotted line and the green dotted line are upper and lower confidence bounds. We're recommending using the lower confidence bound here, just a little bit below what our log regression curve is projecting will be at in 2027 and 2029. We think this captures the rapid growth that we saw, and you can see in the data there. With the increases in telework, we think we'll still see a little bit of increases in non-single occupancy vehicle travel, but just not quite as the large growth we've seen in the previous fiscal years or calendar years. Third performance measure is CMAQ total emission reductions. This performance measure tracks the effectiveness of transportation investments in improving air quality. It targets ground level ozone and particulate matter, specifically VOC, NOx, and PM10. An example would be a transit expansion project reduced non-single occupancy vehicle travel trips, 5 kilograms a day of NOx saved from that project. And so it's taking a look at what our emission reductions might be from projects that we do using CMAQ funds. The requirements here, Dr. Cog is a bit more complicated since they have a population over 1 million. They are required to produce a specific performance plan. It's a bit more straightforward for the North Front Range NPO. They are required to either support these state targets or set targets specific to their NPO boundary. To forecast future CMAQ reductions, we use an average benefit reduction by dollar. I'll cover the 5 steps over the next upcoming slides. Step 1 and step 2. So first we collected the historical reductions to see how much emission reductions we'll have per year for each benefit. And then we took a look at the annual funding that was delivered during that calendar year. Using that, we were able to calculate the average benefit per dollar. So that way we're able to see if we spend $1, we're expecting this much reductions in VOC, NOx, or PM10. From there, we used funding in our fiscal year 26 through 29 STIP to generate annual projections. So we took those figures there in the table, the 62 million, and multiplied that by our average benefit per dollar. And we were able to forecast roughly what CMAQ emission reductions might look like in the future. We did take that raw data and then put a 5% safety buffer there. This ensured the targets remain realistic and achievable regardless of project delays or shifting cost. For the 2-year targets, we are recommending a target of 421 kilograms a day for VOC, 603 for NOx, 128 for PM10. For our 4-year targets, we're recommending 856 for VOC, 1,226 for NOx, and 261 for PM10. I do want to note the 2-year target represents the sum of benefits from 2026 through 2027. And then that 4-year target is the cumulative number of all 4 years. I know I went through that pretty quickly. Again, our ask today will be for a recommendation of approval to take this to the Planning Council. So that way we can have these joint NPO targets approved by September, allowing CDOT to be able to submit this to the feds in October. Any questions, comments, concerns?
This is Becky. I just want to clarify. So this is here today at this, the July TAC. It will be a discussion item at the August council, and then it will come back August TAC for your action, and then adoption at the September council. So we did this, the midterm adjustments a couple of years ago. So we're around, and these are the same ones that we did then, but this time we're doing for 2 and 4 years. That one was the midterm adjustment, so just for the 4.
Any questions for Jacob?
I would say just to confirm, if we don't meet these goals, there's no consequences, right? This is just kind of something more for us to just try to achieve in the book.
Right. Is there a consequence to the state, Jacob?
Yeah, correct. There's no consequence here. If we don't meet targets, we do have to write a significant progress determination report to the feds. You know, the only penalty there is staff time, but there's no financial fines or any penalties if we do not meet these targets. It's more of a technical practice to make sure we're following the transportation performance management framework set by the feds.
Any more questions? Move on to Connected Communities 2055 RSCs with Jerome. So thank you.
So for this discussion, we'll only be focusing on the regionally significant corridors. I will note that we took all the corridors for Planning Council at the July council meeting, and there we go. And we did not receive any significant comment. However, there is a process that CDOT is going through the US 34 corridor preservation study. And that is looking at US 34 between Boise Avenue in Loveland and 65th Avenue in Greeley. And it is looking at, it is doing some modeling to see what will happen to the US 34 corridor as the corridor gets built out in 2050. And looking at different alternatives to see how those alternatives would impact the corridor. And with that, they had a series of scenarios. One scenario was the low build scenario, which was additions that CDOT and local agencies felt were realistic to be completed by, I believe, 2050 is the out year. And then there was the high build scenario that threw everything at the wall that could be possible, that were less confident of happening. So on the maps here, the map here on the left, that is all of our corridors in one map. So the green lines, those are our existing region significant corridors where the road is there today. The green dashed line are corridors that are part of the 2050 RTP, but the roadway is not currently existing. And then the yellow line is the proposed corridor that has not yet been adopted by Planning Council. And then the red line on the map here on the left are our regional transit corridors, and the black dashed lines are active transportation corridors. The blue line, that is the low build network that we received from CDOT. I realized this map is a lot to look at. So I was able to find a map that shows just our roadway network here on the left, the right. So on that one, it is split out between north, south, and east, west. So the red line is referring to our north-south region significant corridors. The blue line is referring to the east-west corridors. And then the green line is the proposed corridor that hasn't yet to be adopted by Planning Council. And then that yellow line are the alternatives. And you will see on both, I did draw I can't remember my colors, a gray line. And that is because that is an existing roadway that wasn't very obvious on the map. And I wanted to show that that would be a full connection. Slide, please.
From going back to that map that you just showed, there is a connection on Kendall Parkway, kind of the same thing as that gray line that would go between Kendall, it goes up there. To connect those two dots there, and that's existing roadway infrastructure.
Okay, so on the western side up to, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Out of that. For discussion, the next slide. So I zoomed into the central part of the region for a few reasons. The first is in this section, I do see a few segments where the CDOT alignments are not in alignment with what we have in the 2050 RTP. So the first one I want to look at is here on the bottom left. That is Boyd Lake Avenue. And then we do see the dash line, looks like it is a straight shot to the southern section here. But CDOT's alignment does show it going a little bit not being straight lines. So the first question is the CDOT alignment for that roadway correct?
It is correct, and it is compliant with Connect Law. So our transportation master plan does show that alignment that bows out, and it does end up further to the east than if it had head straight down.
Okay, so we will make those edits to the corridor. The second one I'm seeing is there on, I didn't know what road that is, Larimer County Road 3, where we see that yellow, I wish I had a pointer. I can use the mouse. Let's see if I can. So this right here, Larimer County Road 3, we have that going straight. But CDOT has it bowing out here. I don't know if we have someone with the town of Johnstown online, but is that alignment correct? That being the CDOT alignment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's due to the Encore development and them trying to get their XL decel lanes without having to impact the railroad. They had to jog it out a little bit further in order to get the XL decel without widening over the railroad.
Gotcha. So we'll also update that alignment as well. And then the third one is 4th Street and Greeley. So where we see on the top left, the top right,
Yeah, so between Weld County Road 17 and 257, that segment is more accurate to the current planning that's happening out there. I'll give the caveat that connecting between that end location on 257 and the alignment that follows the existing utility lines, which is where you kind of see it start to go diagonal. It gets a little bit tricky. There is an open space conservation area out there that the existing blue line goes straight through, and it's very unlikely we will be able to do that. So that is what our alignment had also been with the transportation master plan. And so now we're seeking alternative ways to make that connection, although the connection itself is still within our transportation master plan.
Thank you for that context. Do you think that at some point those two segments will be connected?
Yes, we will ensure that the as we have development, we are requiring that they provide that right-of-way alignment and reserving the right-of-way. There's just a couple of different alternatives for how to achieve that.
And that kind of ties into the next big thing I want to discuss is when reviewing this map, I do see, especially with the context that 4th Street will eventually be extended out, that there is a continuous corridor beginning in here and continuing out. And this is why I want to show that those are connected so they don't look like two separate segments up into here. So the question would be is, and this we don't necessarily need to come with the answer today, there needs to be further discussion. There is an opportunity to extend the 4th Street corridor out eastbound towards its,
Sorry, I apologize. For those that aren't in the room, can you refer to which segment of 4th Street you're talking about?
Yes. I can use the mouse. So I'm referring to this corridor here. So if this is connected out, then there will be an opportunity for it to go eastbound following here, and then with its terminus either here at, and I did write down what the road was on my paper in front of me.
At the fairgrounds or Centera.
Yes, you're correct, Centera, thank you. Here at Centera,
Could we actually have it turn and head a little south on Centera and then continue up Kendall? Because then we would go underneath I-25 and we could continue that corridor all the way to Boyd Lake.
yeah, oh, absolutely we can. We will just need to work on that alignment. And that's that we can look into, then bring that back to TAC at a future meeting with that full alignment to discuss whether we want to propose adding that as an extension. The purpose of this, which I should mention at the beginning, is that we want, to the best of our ability, to have our plans and CDOT's plans match where applicable. And we did not want us to lose an opportunity to update our original corridors. If this plan is adopted, we do see that this central part is happening. And we do know there's significant development coming along US 34 in the central region, and that corridor will see significant traffic due to that development coming in. So we wanted to make sure that we incorporate this in the plan if that is indeed happening and there is regional consensus that that is a road of regional significance.
And what's the standard for that road? What are we looking at? Is it an arterial? Is it a collector? 2 lanes, 4 lanes? What are we talking?
So I know the existing segment, I believe, is 2 lanes. I would have to look to see what the classification is. And that'll be part of the process that we do. If there is agreement, we want to look into extending the 4th Street corridor, is looking at those facilities and seeing if it qualifies as a regionally significant or based on our definitions. We wanted to come first to see if that was even something that there was interest in before looking into it too much deeper. And then if there are other connections that we have seen or has been noticed, we wanted to be sure to get that feedback as well. And then Hannah said that 4th Street is classified as an arterial within Greeley. I'm not sure with the newer, with the proposed, the yellow line, what that facility will be. My guess is based off of development around it would be an arterial, but I can't confirm that off the top of my head.
I know for the Loveland section, so if you're looking from, I believe that's Colorado, not Colorado, maybe it's Summer County Road 3 all the way over to
Yes.
Centera. That section is gonna be a major collector for Loveland. But if that's something that we need to change that in our next iteration of our master plan, we can look at doing so.
Yeah, and I think especially as we get the results of the US 34 preservation study, that can give us more insight on what is anticipated on that corridor. But we do know that central part of the region is where we're going to see significant growth. And then Elizabeth did put the RC should be arterial. So that is one consideration if we do move forward. This is that any segment that is not currently an arterial would eventually need to be upgraded to an arterial. That will be part of the discussion as well.
At least for the Loveland section, it currently goes through a neighborhood sort of thing. So it would be tough to upgrade it to an arterial, but.
So that Loveland section east of Centera, or east of Centera or west of?
So currently it goes through Kingston. I think it's Kingston Parkway. Is the road we're talking about right now, parallel to Kendall Parkway, just a little bit, because it's a little north of it. And it will eventually tie into County Road 3.
So with this as well, we can also determine what that, if we were to move forward with this, what that western terminus is. It does not have to be the whole extension of the corridor. It could be to the county line, if that is what makes sense. It could be to wherever it makes the most sense regionally. It does not have to be the full alignment if there are concerns with segments being able to be classified as an arterial. So what all we're looking for today with this is a thumbs up on if this is something you would like for us to investigate, or if it would be worth our time to look into this from that regional perspective. Are we comfortable with us looking into this a little bit further than coming back with what we find?
Next one.
We'll chat offline.
Oh, no, I'm.
At some future TAC meeting, August or September.
All right, any comments? If there's no comments, I think we'll just plan on hearing about this on the future and I think we can do more. Sure. Next will be the regional transit discussion highlights, and we've got Becky and Andrew next one. So
Yeah, so this morning, we had our regional transit discussion about a variety of topics. So defining what regional transit is, looking at some different regional funding strategies, talked about the US 34 transit study, and then Greeley staff talked about the US 34 transit funding strategies, as well as IGA for the Poudre Express, and also about the Poudre Express. So the highlights, I would say, you know, I think we all sort of agreed on what regional transit is, the various different definitions, because it really depends on where you are and where the service is. But for the 34 transit study, I mentioned it in the meeting this morning, and I also wanted to bring it to the larger TAC, which is due does everyone feel comfortable, with moving forward with recommending approval or adoption or acceptance or whatever we want to call it of the 34 transit study, so we can take that study and use it as a reference point for a variety of different things we want to do. So we have a study that documents 34 transit, and then we can use that if some, going out and applying for funding, or as a reference point to say, this is the need for this transit along 34. It doesn't have to be next month. It could be a different time. Do we want to go back out for public comments? So just some thoughts on what everyone is thinking about that. So we have just have it as a reference point, and then move forward. We can incorporate it into the RTP as well. So if there are any thoughts about that, did you hear those? There will be a meeting with the folks that are involved in the Twitter Express IGA, I believe in August sometime. So there's that as well. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, Jerome.
I think you covered most of it. Another big subject of discussion was the pros and cons of a regional transportation authority. No decision has been made. It's just more starting that conversation. And Elizabeth did note that in December, I cannot.
Craig Secret.
Yeah, Craig Secret, thank you. From the Clean Transit Enterprise will be coming to discuss that process with Planning Council.
Any other questions, or anyone else who was there, you want to add anything that we missed?
Today, so we'll just move it on to outside partner reports. We've got the NOCO Bike and Ped Collaborative, which is a written report, and then next item is the regional transit agencies with Joshua.
And we haven't met since our last update. Our next meeting's July 29th. I'll be able to provide an update following that meeting.
Alrighty, and then next we've got mobility updates. Aaron?
I'll make the mobility updates since Tanya's out of town right now. She wrote a mid-year report and a grant funding matrix that's in the handouts, but just a quick summary to highlight some facts on those reports. So far this year, we received 271 phone calls and 6,743 website visits, which is double both those numbers from last year at this moment. And then so far, the data we're collecting is 61% older adults, 53% calls coming from Lammer, 28% coming from Weddell. And then we're seeing an increase in disabled people calling with about 44%, 17% needing wheelchairs. We wrapped up our summer moves challenge over the month of June that we worked with SC Moves on. We saw about 50 participants with over 1,045 trips logged and 6,764 miles. I don't know where My Way to Go gets this estimation from, but they estimated about $4,500 saved and 5,176 pounds of CO2 saved from these trips logged. We're reaching out to the winners of this challenge, and we'll post social media next week. We're just trying to confirm they're okay with us using their names and images. Then just to highlight one other thing, Tanya has gotten about $495,000 in grants among 6 different grants that she's been applied for to help sustain the mobility program and to help with improvement of the Red NOCO program. So those are some mobility highlights.
Very good. Thanks, Aaron. Cool. All right, we'll move on to reports. We have the July Planning Council meeting summary draft. That's a written report. Got the North Orange NPO air quality program updates, also a written report. We got the 2026 Q2 TIP modifications, which is a written report. Mobility committees, which is also a written report. And that brings us to the round table. And I guess we can pick on staff over here with the drone. Go ahead. How are you?
So, and NFRMPO staff, we are currently looking through the project submittals that we've received thus far. So we will begin next week. We'll begin reaching out to those projects submittals for any questions that may have. I'll also be reaching out to communities we have not received project submittals yet, to check on the status on that. With the projects, we do have time. The tracker counts are still the priority there. We have, plenty of time when it comes to the project. We can work with each community on, what schedule works for you concerning that. Because ultimately with the project, we are more concerned that everything in there is accurate. So if it does take time, we understand. We know this is a big ask, a lot of plans, a lot of things to go through for this. So we want to be as flexible as we can. So we'll be reaching out on that next week.
Good. Tomorrow, various communities will be sent an email from me for the tip delay process. This is the process where we look at the funding sources that we distribute and see how this product is moving along. So that will be a discussion at the August TAC, a discussion at the September Council, and then September TAC, there will be an action where you'll decide on the first plays, and then choose to recommend or not recommend the second, third, or potentially fourth plays. And then council will take action on second, third, and possibly fourth delays at the September meeting. So look out for that tomorrow for some communities, and that's all from me.
Anything for you, Josh? Yeah.
For Loveland, I would just say we're working on our Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan. We're going to start doing some community engagement surrounding that. So if you hear anything or see anything, that's what we're doing. And then we are also continuing our Frontline Passenger Rail Station Planning study, and we're really excited about the area around there and all the different opportunities we can have for our downtown area. No updates.
Do have an update. So for those of you who attended the model steering team meeting last month, early this, I think it was in June, I don't know. There was a presentation from Urban Sim staff about how this time around they're utilizing a upload system where everyone will be sent an individual email with your credentials. And then you can upload your zoning and development data to that website. I just wanted to let everyone know that email will come from info@urbansim.com. So I'm not sure when it will go out, today or tomorrow, but please check your junk email. So it should say UrbanSim is who it's from, and then info@urbansim.com. It's going to have your credentials. It's going to have a link for you to be able to go into it. Once you get logged into there, you will see your boundary along with the parcel layer, and then how there will be a panel for developable projects. So you can go in there, and there's a test project that's already been saved to show you how to go through that process. You can manually enter the projects, or you can upload a project spreadsheet. There's a sample template in there as well. If you manually enter them, there's a variety of information that they need. So like the number of residential units, floors, jobs, project type, and expected timeline. So if there are any questions that, you're urged to contact Urban Sim, but there will be a tutorial provided by Urban Sims for how to go through that. And it'll be in the credential emails. But if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to Ziba or myself. If you don't get the email, and then we can double check to make sure that it's actually sent to the right person. We provided her with model steering team members, so hopefully it gets to the right people. But if you don't receive it by, Monday, let's say, feel free to reach out and we'll see what's going on with them, because they're sending it out, not necessarily CCing us, just heads up. That is all that I have.
For Will County, we've got a couple of project updates. These are two projects that we received funding through the North Range NPO, so very grateful for that. Two roundabout projects. So the first one County Road 54 and County Road 13 are roundabout there at that location, which is also Freedom Parkway in Colorado. So construction is underway on that project, should be wrapping up here in October and with completion in late October. So good things on that one. And then another project we received funding for was County Road 74 and County Road 31, also a roundabout project. That project's going to go out bid in August, so next month. So pretty soon we'll be getting underway with construction on that project as well. So good stuff on that. That's all I have. But looking online, are there any updates, any roundtable updates anyone would like to make? Spencer.
Hey, everybody. Just want to give a quick update on the CDOT active transportation and transit project inventory. We have finished our portion of that inventory. It is available on the CDOT website, and this is really looking mostly at the rural areas, but this was captured from a variety of different plans across the state, and it is available for reference if anybody wants to look for it. Thanks.
Spencer, could you put the link to that in the chat?
Yeah, I'm dropping it right now.
Oh, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, so for the merge project, the city's completed our raised federal grant agreement, and we are currently waiting for FHWA to sign that. We are advertising for the CMGC services, and we're continuing with our financial planning, as well as our NEPA development. And then for the SS4A project, we are currently conducting public engagement. After public engagement is complete, we anticipate construction either late this year or early next year. For O Street and 59th Avenue, essentially we are just waiting for final acceptance and project closeout. And then, as you may have heard, Gurley Evans Transit is formally being rebranded to Gallup Transportation. The brand was soft launched over the summer with our new wrapped buses in the 4th of July parade. We will have more buses going out on August 20th and with some local service changes. That's it on my end. Thank you.
Any other updates? Seeing any, we'll go ahead and wrap up the meeting, and we'll be meeting on August 19th for the next TAC meeting. So